Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are fundamentally changing how we look at English. So often we're taught that grammar is just this rigid, kind of boring set of rules that you just have to memorize. But honestly, it's really not. Think of it like this. If parts of speech are the individual bricks and beams, well, sentence structure is the dynamic architectural blueprint where all these parts actually work together to construct meaning. We're going to see exactly how every single word gets assigned a very specific job to build a complete thought.
Okay, let's dive into the structural roadmap. Don't worry, it's simpler than it sounds. Building a complete sentence really just means understanding four core structural concepts: the subject, the predicate, the object, and the complement.
But before we hit that first pillar, we need to establish a foundational rule. Words themselves, they're just raw materials. A word's identity is entirely determined by the job it's assigned in the sentence blueprint, not just its dictionary definition. Take the word work. If I say, I work in the city, work is a verb here. It's an action. But if I say, I have a lot of work to do, now work functions as a noun. It's a thing. It's the exact same word, but it creates an entirely different meaning based on its structural role.
Let's start with Pillar 1, this subject.
Everything else we build is going to balance on this core actor. Every single sentence in English is built around a central focus. The subject is simply the who or the what that the sentence is actually about. It's the person, place, thing, or idea performing the action or being described. Without this foundational actor, our sentence is totally incomplete. It's basically a stage with absolutely no actors on it.
So how do we spot it? I love this simple two-step formula because it literally works every single time. Step 1, find the verb. Step 2, ask yourself who or what is doing this action. Let's practice with a quick sentence. The committee drafted a new policy. First, find the verb, drafted. Now ask, well, who or what drafted? The answer is the committee. Boom, there's your subject.
Subjects come in a few different forms depending on how much information is attached to them. We have simple subjects, like ambassador. Complete subjects, which add modifiers like the brilliant ambassador from Geneva, and compound subjects, which are just joined by and. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the implied subject. This is kind of like a ghost subject. It happens in command sentences, like read the briefing document carefully. The subject isn't actually written down, but it's universally understood to be an invisible you. It's essentially an invisible you bossing people around. Before we leave subjects, I just want to highlight a quirky structural insight. Usually, the subject sits right at the beginning of the sentence, right before the verb. But when we ask a question, our structural foundation shifts slightly. The subject often gets sandwiched right between parts of the verb. Take a look. Are the delegates arriving today? The delegates is our subject, and it's tucked neatly between are and arriving.
Moving right along to Pillar 2, the predicate.
If the subject is our concrete foundation, the predicate is the entire house built on top of it. It's the news about that subject, literally everything else in the sentence. It tells us what the subject is doing, what's happening to it, or its state of being. But here is the absolute unbreakable rule of this blueprint. A predicate must always contain a verb. Without a verb, the house just collapses, you don't have a predicate, and the sentence isn't complete.
Just like our subjects, predicates can scale up depending on detail. We have the simple predicate, which is literally just the main verb in any helping verbs. For example, the delegates were arguing. Were arguing is the simple predicate. Then we have the complete predicate, which is the verb plus all its modifiers, objects, and extra details. Things like, we're arguing over the treaty's final clause. And a compound predicate is just when a subject does two things, like smiled but refused.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of my absolute favorite concepts in grammar. English sentence structure is fundamentally a binary system at its highest level. Every single complete sentence splits exactly down the middle into two camps, the complete subject on one side and the complete predicate on the other. It's just a perfect balancing act.
Next up, room additions, the object.
Okay, so we have our foundation and our house. But what if the verb is an action that actually needs to land somewhere? That brings us to our necessary room additions. While the subject performs the action, the object is the receiver of that action. It lives right inside the predicate. Now, importantly, not all verbs need these room additions to make the house functional. If I say, the empire collapsed, collapsed is an intransitive verb. It makes perfect sense on its own. No object needed. But transitive verbs absolutely require an object to receive the action and actually make sense.
So let's walk through the mental exercise of finding the object. It's another simple two-step process. Step 1, find the subject and verb. Step 2, ask subject plus verb plus what or whom. Take the sentence, the Prime Minister vetoed the legislation. Ask yourself, the Prime Minister vetoed what? The answer? The legislation. That right there is your object receiving the veto.
Now, objects function in 3 distinct ways in our structural blueprint. First is the direct object. That's the primary receiver of the action. The assembly drafted a resolution. Second is the indirect object, which identifies to whom or for whom the action was done. It always sits snugly between the verb and the direct object. Think, the state granted the diplomats immunity. And finally, the object of a preposition, which directly follows a preposition like in or across, as in across the border.
So, the crucial point is this fascinating structural hack. An indirect object is basically just a prepositional phrase wearing a disguise. Look, we can use an indirect object. They sent the embassy a warning. Or we can express the exact same architectural meaning using a prepositional phrase. They sent a warning to the embassy. It's really just 2 different ways to frame the exact same room.
Finally, let's move to our last section, the finishing touches, the complement. Let's see how this all builds into the finishing touches of our blueprint.
Complements are necessary to complete the meaning of a sentence, but they do it very differently than objects do. I want you to use this visual metaphor. Think of an object as a target that takes a hit. It receives an action, right? But think of a complement as a mirror. A complement reflects back on a noun that is already in the sentence to describe or rename it.
Because they act as mirrors, complements are divided based on what they're reflecting. We have subject complements, which follow linking verbs like is or becomes. A linking verb acts like a literal equal sign between the subject and the complement. Like, the negotiations became hostile. Hostile reflects back on negotiations. Then we have object complements, which directly follow and describe direct objects. The council elected her chairperson. Chairperson reflects back on the object, her.
To really see how these sentence parts build meaning, look at what happens when we remove a structural load-bearing wall. Look at the phrase, the delay made the citizens angry. Angry is our object complement, reflecting on the citizens. If we remove it and just say, the delay made the citizens, well, the sentence's meaning completely breaks down. It sounds like the delay literally created the citizens out of thin air. So the complement isn't just extra detail, it is structurally vital to the meaning.
Now, I just want to clarify a very common trap before we wrap up. Take these 2 sentences. He painted the house red versus he painted the house quickly. In the first one, red is an object complement. It's a mirror reflecting the state of the house itself. But in the second, quickly is just an adverb. It doesn't reflect the house, it describes the action of painting. Identifying these roles correctly unlocks exactly how the sentence is engineered to deliver meaning.
And there you have it, the 4 pillars: subject, predicate, object, and complement. By understanding that grammar is just this incredible architectural blueprint, you can stop just memorizing rules and actually start engineering thoughts. Every single sentence you read or write is a structure waiting to be decoded. So my question to you is, are you ready to practice identifying these structures in your everyday reading? And even more importantly, how will you consciously build your next sentence? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy building.